Hello my friends, so today I want to talk to you about 6 advantages of water-based acrylic paints for airbrushing and why I meanwhile only use them for airbrushing. So let's move on to the first advantage. The first benefit is the biggest and most obvious. Water-based paints are non-toxic, safe and have a pleasant smell. I am very passionate about this hobby as probably most of you and would spend all of my money on it, but on the same time I want to minimize severe health problems. It's a hobby which gives us a lot, but at the same time it's also a hobby where we come into a contact with a lot of materials that are harmful to health, and I want to keep the health burden as low as possible despite all protective measures. I bet everyone who sprays solvent-based paints knows that a mask doesn't catch everything and that despite all precautions you often can't protect yourself. Especially leveling thinner from Mr. Color creeps through every mask in my opinion. These toxic fumes and chemicals can be very harmful to the breathing system and the environment. For me it is now a strange thought to spray and distribute highly toxic chemicals through my home. Additionally, water-based paints have no smell. Solvent-based paints on the other hand emit strong unpleasant odors that can cause headaches and nausea. Moreover, water-based paints are non-flammable, which means that they are safer to use when working with fire, reducing the risk of accidents. It's now quite clear to me to only use water-based paints because the results can be just as good and my modeling performance even increases because I can work comfortably with these paints for much longer without getting headaches and nausea. The second advantage is that they are very efficient and cheap. For example, where I live, Vallejo paints are significantly cheaper than Tamiya paints. While Tamiya paints cost 173 euros per liter, Vallejo paints cost only 134 euros per liter. It is even cheaper per color bottle, and Vallejo color bottles only cost about half as much. Sure, the bottle only contains 17 milliliters instead of 23 milliliters, but sometimes you don't need that much of a color. If you buy a lot of colors, you save a lot of money. Regardless of the price, the colors are also very efficient, which means that you often only need a few drops to cover a large area of paint. Here I did an experiment and wanted to see how much area I could spray with just 2 drops of undiluted Vallejo air. That was the result. Then I added another 4 drops and was able to spray the entire armor plate very well and achieve an opaque result despite the black primer surface. So another advantage is that the colors dry very quickly, but the best thing is that the drying time can be accelerated. All you need is a hairdryer. However, it is important to use the hairdryer on the coldest setting. If the second stage is only lukewarm, it can also be used, which speeds up the drying time even more. Under no circumstances should the hottest level be used for figures or a filigree model, because I show later what would happen. But once you're done applying the paint, you can just blow dry it. As it turns out, the paint dries quickly to the point where you can touch it. For sanding, however, the paint should dry out for a long time, and after a few coats you should allow the paint to dry through. Here I show what happens when the hairdryer is too hot, so you don't have to go through that pain. As you can see, the rifle bends. Even the whole chassis can be warped by the heat from the hairdryer. This is a damage to the model that cannot be repaired, so be careful. It is better to be too careful than to cause irreversible damage. If you have already invested 50 hours in a model, tears can otherwise flow. The fourth advantage is that water-based acrylics are mistake tolerant because they don't react with the colors underneath. Solvent-based paints and solvents in general would dissolve any paint, but water and water-based paints will not react with the other paint layers, so they can be easily wiped away. Here I spray on a lot of paint which I can easily remove with a cloth and water. After a little wiping, the color is no longer visible. In this way, errors can be corrected quickly and directly. Since this application is not realistic, I will show again on a white model how paint that has been applied in layers and has dried can be removed. To do this, take a cloth and water and wipe off everything that can be removed. As it turns out, however, there are layers of paint that can no longer be wiped off. To remove these colors, you need a polishing sponge and water. With the help of this fine sponge and the water, I'm able to remove most of the paint. Of course, there are still a few residues and gaps, for example, but that can be fixed. So I was able to save the model. Rescuing the model with solvent-based paints would not be possible in this way, and possibly not even at all, depending on how strongly the paints have bonded with the surface. The fifth advantage is that water-based acrylics are easy to clean and do not damage the airbrush. Theoretically, you only need water and no nasty chemicals to rinse and cleanse the airbrush. 1 or 2 flushes are usually enough for the airbrush to clean it. Likewise, water is very gentle on the materials of the airbrush. Inside an airbrush are small rubber seals that can be damaged and dissolved by solvents. Therefore, solvents can damage the airbrush, especially when letting it flow back. On the other hand, water and water-based cleaning and care products treat the airbrush well. The next advantage is that your airbrush skills will be improved by using water-based paints. Sure, this can be frustrating at first, but as water-based paints are more challenging to work with, you automatically gain a better understanding of how the airbrush and the variables of distance, pressure and consistency interact, which leads to the fact that you will improve your skills and be able to try new techniques. I would even go so far as to say that I would recommend beginners to start directly with water-based paints, because many problems with water-based paints also occur with modelers who have developed routines with solvent-based paints over the years and therefore get problems when they try to continue with water-based paints just as they did before with solvent-based paints. Also, you won't have to start your whole paint collection from scratch again if you decide to switch to water-based paints later. And as I think has also been shown, the other advantages I've mentioned so far are also beginner friendly. Now I have a few little extra benefits. First, I think I noticed that water-based paints are very resistant to solvents. Here I dropped a drop of isopropyl alcohol on Vallejo primer and after the solvent dried a stain was visible, but the paint was not dissolved. I have even used isopropyl alcohol to chip a top layer of paint without dissolving the underlying layers of paint. Secondly, water-based acrylic paints are perfect for the hairspray chipping technique, where the paint is sprayed over a layer of hairspray and then scraped off with a brush or a toothpick to create a weathered effect. Water-based acrylic paints are perfect for this since they peel off easily, but after 1 coat of varnish they are bomb-proof. Another small advantage is that there is a wide range of acrylics available. If you want to invest the money, you theoretically don't have to mix colors anymore. You can even buy highlight tones and color modulation sets. Amomic and AK Interactive offer such things, for example. So in conclusion, I will not deny the advantage of lacquer paints. I mean, they flow well through the airbrush and react with the plastic underneath, which builds a stronger bond, but for me the advantages of water-based paints outweigh the advantages of solvent-based paints. For me it is clear that I will mainly only use water-based paints for airbrushing, as they are good for my modeling skill and better for my health, my environment, my wallet, my time, my mistakes, my airbrush and certain airbrushing techniques. I hope for you this video was interesting and maybe helpful. If you get the urge to try water-based paints, subscribe to my channel. I've already created a guide on the proper use of different water-based paints and primers and will be posting it in the near future. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below and don't forget to like. See you in the next video.